Eldar do not easily forget. The dark branch of their kind, who many millennia ago had split from their craft-world cousins, still looked back on them with a kind of hatred that can only stem from personal betrayal. Since they had arrived in the system, Archon Taril had kept a wary eye on the doings of the Eldar Farseer. Debased by nature, he could not restrain himself for long against the provocations of this ancient hatred. When he felt he was strong enough, he and his bloodthirsty raiding band fell upon the Eldar stronghold of Tanil, which the Imperium had named the Upper Wastes. Archon Taril and Farseer Kiris were pitted one against the other, speed for speed, trick for trick, evasion for evasion. But in the end, it was the Dark Eldar who struck the final blow. The wild pleasure that his warriors took in defiling the captured Eldar was far greater than it could have been for any other race. Of course, the bulk of hostages were reserved for tribute to Taril and his superiors. Yet, in spite of all his bounty, Taril was deeply pained to learn that Farseer Kiris had escaped and might never be made his personal plaything. Still, the victory was great and would raise his standing among the Archons of the Black Heart Cabal. Although it was in a different age that they parted ways with their craft-world relatives, the Dark Eldar had not forgotten the dark and bloody wars between their ancient kindred and the Necrons. The fiendish machines made poor victims of Dark Eldar piracy. They were always armed, and although their frames did encase souls, those were feeble and sour, and could not be tortured before reaping. Defeating the Necrons was a necessary and grim task. Although they took less joy in the endeavor, the Dark Eldar fought with no less ferocity. They danced and fired before their deathless foes with vicious abandon. The Necron legions could not stop them, and neither could the threat of the great monoliths. Not even the appearance of the Great Deceiver, summoned into corporeal form, could avert the Dark Eldar's victory. Alas, no celebrations followed. They took no slaves and pillaged no goods. Their duty done, Taril's forces fled the place in search of foes who could bleed and plead and cry out in pain. The bumbling forays of the Orc armies had irritated Archon Taril one too many times, and he grew weary of their presence in his battlefield. It was without much difficulty that the Dark Eldar, keen of eye and ear, found the supposedly secret mountain fortress of the Kalraven Orcs. The sheer number of these green brutes rendered the stronghold sack quite difficult, but Taril prevailed. Many Orc corpses festooned Raider and Ravager decks. Orcs in great number were taken as playthings for Taril, his homunculus Grumennael, and as tribute to the elders of Komorah. Hellions and Reavers were sent through the narrow mountain passes to hunt Orcs that had fled. The mighty, if incomplete, fortifications of the Nan Yanoi moonbase had been constructed to withstand masses of invasion fleets and heavy weapons. In their many careful preparations, the Tau had not considered the sheer brutal speed of the Dark Eldar. Perhaps because previous encounters with the Dark Eldar had not left survivors for the Tau to learn from. Regardless, the attack was so swift and so overwhelming that many fire warriors did not have time to arm themselves and die nobly in combat. They would instead come to find themselves in a hell beyond imagining, in the torture cells of Lakune and Komorah. After the battle, Asdrubal Vect himself graced the scene of the conquered base and presided over the vile banquet held on the night of the victory, personally feasting on the heart of the dying ethereal.